Okay, that looks a little bit dark, but we're going to try and do this anyway. The sun is blaring. I'm outside. I'm underneath my canopy, and we're going to make some compost tea. Um, Earlier in the week, we were talking about how simple it is once you know how to do it, how much easier it would be if someone showed you how to do it. So today, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you a few simple steps how I like to make the tea. Typically, once I've gathered all of my materials, I can make the tea in less than 15 minutes. After you make your first tea, it'll get easier and easier and easier. What I can say after making teas for many years is that the best compost teas are actually made with compost. So I want to form the basis of this that we're all understanding. The first word is the operative. Compost is what's necessary to make compost tea. Now, if you don't have compost, there are alternatives. But at the end of the day, the goal is to have compost to make compost tea with. We want to have our plants. We want to have our plants in a composted state, and we want to have the microbes that live and exist with them. And we want that to transfer into our liquid media within our aerated, in this case, we're talking about aerated compost teas. Within our aerated compost teas, vigorous aeration will select the beneficial microbes that exist in the soil, dislodge them from the soil. It will throw them around in the liquid solution, and it'll put them in direct contact with some of the nutrients that we're going to put in place. So the first thing I want to do now is I want to talk to you about the nutrients. It's really simple, and a lot of this stuff has more to do with principle than anything else. All life, all life that's like us requires air. All life that's like us requires protein, carbohydrates, amino acids, and some very basic minerals that exist in the dirt and in our soils. They need all of this. We need all of this because it becomes our constitution. So when we intend to take soil microbial life that exists within the confines of our compost and our soils in the garden and, underneath the trees, down at the base where we might have put wood chips to help protect our trees, hold moisture, and we can find microbes all over the place. There's a whole bunch of them. And the more of them that we put together that are good guys, the better our gardens are going to grow. Each of these good guys performs a specific function. Okay? Microbes, although they may be different, although some may be single-celled, some may be multi-celled, most all of them are too small to see with the naked eye. So it's a powerful gardening force that you can use, that you can enlist. You can manually enlist these members of your gardening force by going out into your fields and into your pastures and underneath your treescapes and in your windrows and even under your low-lying grasses. Successional grasses have all kinds of root fungi on them. And you can literally take this media and you can shake it off in water and the microbes will transfer to the water. So that's the idea behind the compost teas. The other thing is compost teas, we're going to feed them so we can make more microbes. We're not going to feed it so we can make more food. We're going to feed it because happy microbes love to eat and then they love to multiply. And I want as much diversity of microbial life as I can find. I want one representative from every season, from every day, from every climatic situation. I want representatives that exist when it's dry, when it's hot, when it's cold, when it's wet. I want all of these guys in my solution. Typically, where I find them is going to be in those places that I've mentioned. But as a whole, it's very easy to start with two locations. To start with the weeds that exist around your property, the ones that are not noxious, the ones that are not going to give you a rash can be harvested. We're also going to start with the mushrooms, the mycology that's growing on your land, preferably your land. And in addition to them, the compost from the plants that you grew previously. All that stuff said together, mixed up, is going to make roughly 1 to 2 pounds of media inside your grow bag. I'm going to show you your grow bag. It looks like this. This is just a little bag. It's like a filter bag. Ladies, y'all wash your dainties in these things. All we're going to do is we're going to take a scooper, just like this, and I'm going to go to the compost pile. In this case, it's one of these barrels that's behind me. I'm going to put a scoop right into this bag. Okay? Y'all want to see? All right. Here's one scoop of compost. Okay? It's about 3/4 of a pound. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the bag, just like that. All right? If y'all don't have compost, you can go out and you can actually use what you collect. And I took a few minutes before I got set up here, and I actually took some time to go around my property and pick up some things. I've got purslane. I've got thornless blackberry, just cuttings. I've got mycology. This is mushrooms that were growing at the base of a plant. I've got, in addition to that, y'all will love this, some other mycology. Okay, you can see that there. There's some ants on it. I've even got some boletes. So North Carolina, we can find boletes. There's one right there, somewhat funky shaping. Hopefully y'all can see that. Good stuff. It's going in there. Now, I'm just going to use this right here to cut it all up. Okay? I've got a work table right here. Don't know if y'all can see on it, but I'm just going to use the scissors inside to cut it up. I want to chop up the leaves. I want to chop up the mycology. I'm going to try not to cut up the pail also. And then, what this represents is the biology that exists right now, because all of this is living matter from right now, from this season. So it's now in here. I've got mixtures of mycology, bacteria. There's no telling how many countless good guys are on all of this stuff because the media is essentially from healthy plants. Okay? I'm going to mix it up just like this. If there's any mushrooms that are not broken up, I'm going to break them up too. Like I said, everything is from here on the farm. Once I've got this stuff mixed up really, really well, I'm going to go ahead and open my bag, reach my hand in there, and stuff the bag. Okay? I actually have more media than I need, and that's fine. It's okay to have more than you need. And this is the part that's really important to mention. Okay? My media bag is full. There's a lot of life in this bag. One thing I want to tell y'all about ratios. Mother Nature and the Heavenly Father, they don't ratio things. So since they don't do that, I don't do that. They don't say, I need one part this and two parts this and three parts that. It's got to be mixed. They're not baking cakes. All right. We relate to this. We relate to this whole concept of baking cakes. Mother Nature, she just layers stuff. So look what I'm doing. I layered it in there. I'm just going to go ahead and make sure it's all fluffed up. The old microbes are mixed up with the new ones. The comfrey's in there all good and happy. Mycology is in there. And what I want is I want the air bubbles to blow through this bag. This is it right here. So this is the life that we want to reproduce. Now we want to give it food, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give y'all a starting point for what you'll need for the food for this, all right? And I want to describe where this is going to go too, because we're going to put this in the water. And what I've done is I've taken this pail right here, and I went ahead and I put about 4.5 gallons of water in it. It's chlorine-free water. You can't try to multiply microbes when you have a sterilant in the water. So chlorine and bromine are no's. Salt, it's a big no. You just don't want to use these things to attempt to multiply microbes in because, well, they're going to kill the microbes, okay? It's great to have that chlorine in the water if you happen to be on city water because at least you know you're not getting pathogens in the water. We don't want that. That makes you sick. In this case, I've got some good old grade A well water. Biology, we're just going to sink it into this water. I'm actually going to lift it up and down, and let it start to drip out. This is how compost tea is made naturally. It's like Paul's always talking about. You spread your compost and your wood chips on the garden in the fall. Mother Nature rains and snows on top of it, and compost tea drips into the lower bouts of soil all winter long. Okay? So really all we're doing is we're speeding the process up. The reason I want to speed this process up is because, folks, I don't know how many of y'all make compost. I make a lot of compost. But if you don't make a lot of compost, guess what? You can't cover a lot of ground with a little bit of compost. What you can do is you can make a little bit of compost, make compost tea, and then you can cover a lot of ground. How much ground? This pail right here is 5 gallons. Okay? 5 gallons. It's going to make roughly 4.5 gallons of concentrated tea in about 2 days. it'll be ready to use. 1 to 2 days. I like to give it 2 days because there's mycology in here. It takes a little bit longer to get that stuff blown off the media and into the solution. And none of it hurts in there. It won't hurt. I promise you. You're going to start putting this stuff out, and you're going to start to see a change. By the time you get through your first and second pails, you're going to start to see a change. Greater resistance. You'll see better fruiting, better flowering. We'll talk about how to manage insects with this as well in a second. But on the whole, this is going to improve fertility on a grand scale, on a greater scale than you could, even if you only had a couple of yards of compost, because you can only spread a couple of yards of compost for so far. But this compost tea, you can spread this over, 5 gallons, an entire acre. Okay? You're never going to get a pound of compost to spread over an entire acre, but you can get a pound of compost tea to spread over an entire acre. All right? So, what about the food? All right. Now, basically, what we have is the makings of an anaerobic tea because I'm not pumping air into here. I'm not selecting good guys over bad guys. I'm not selecting aerobes over anaerobes. Okay. I still need to feed it. So, what are we going to feed it? We said earlier we need protein, organic milk fat. Okay. What else do we need? Think about it, folks. We need some form of carbohydrates, right? So, what can we use for carbohydrates? Well, one of the things that I like to use for carbohydrates is actually molasses. Okay, so we're going to pour some molasses in. How much? About 2 ounces. We're going to pour some fish hydrolysate in because it's full of amino acids. And folks, if you can find an alternative to each of these items, use it. Do so. An alternative to molasses is what? Sugar. Brown sugar is better than white sugar because it wasn't bleached. We talked about how bleach doesn't work very well. I like molasses because I can get the low sulfur version, and I thought I had it out here, but it's not out here, so I'm going to have to go get it. I'll probably put it in there after the fact. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put about 2 ounces of fish hydrolysate into it. We're going to make pretend that I put roughly 2 ounces of molasses in here as well. Okay. I'm going to put 1 scoop of chitin. Okay. This is chitin right here. This is the bodies of Japanese beetles. I've written about why we like to do this. We'll talk about it another time. Okay. It's going to go right in the bag. Right down there into the bag. These other nutrient sources, now, I'm going to shake up. You can see the molasses and the fish hydrolysate make the milk brown. I can do better than this because I want to talk to you about 2 other microbes that can really go a long way towards making your cropping better. They're actually aerobes as well. And anytime we want to use something that we know breeds like us, we're thinking about the aerobic form of microbes. And let me introduce to you the world's most widely used aerobic form of insecticide. This is organic BT. I'm going to use a small amount of this in my food supplement. Okay, small amount. How does Mother Nature measure? Well, I'm just going to pour a little on top. So these guys are aerobes. We're making an aerobe compost tea. What else? So we put Japanese beetles in there. I could put in another bacteria, and that bacteria is called Bacillus papiliae. I'm going to put a little bit of that in there also. It's also aerobic. It lives in our world, and it works against the Japanese beetle. The same exact beetle that I put in there to feed the fungi. Oh, yeah, chitin feeds fungi. So, really all I'm going to do is literally just sprinkle a little bit of those grains in there. It doesn't need to be very much. And one last time, I'm going to put the lid on it. So, I'm holding it up. We've got 4 ounces of organic milk fat, organic cream, organic half and half. It doesn't matter. I try to use organic stuff. We got another 2 ounces of fish hydrolysate and another 2 ounces of molasses, low sulfur molasses. If you introduce sulfur into this equation, you're going to kill microbes and fungi. So we want low sulfur or no sulfur versions of anything that's going to go in here. All right. Now, it all goes back to that premise. And in addition to that, I put some BT in here and I put some milky spore in here because they're all going to brew in here together. And then when I put this on my plants, it's going to be like plant armor. Okay? Here we go. Let's back up. Y'all can watch me do this. I'm just going to dump it in. And folks, I don't fear any of these microbes. I've been working with them for a long time, and they strengthen me, if anything else. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to land for you some resources that you can reach out to find your own air pump if you don't know where to get an air pump. And the air stone, you can use a regular air stone if you want. I use something called the Tea Snake, made by Tea Labs, and it produces lots of bubbles. You probably hear it in the background running right now. I may be able to show y'all. If not, we'll get to it later on. But in any event, this whole entire concoction here took me less than 15 minutes to make, and it's ready. It's ready to have oxygen added to it. Okay, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. However, there's one small caveat. I don't make 5-gallon batches anymore because I've got a lot of land to manage. Instead, I'm going to show you how I make it. I'm going to show you how we oxygenate it, and then I'm going to pour it into a larger batch that I have over here on the right side. Um, I don't need 2 separate batches of compost tea. You probably won't either. I'm not trying to mix a whole bunch of stuff up when I'm ready to apply it and then have to come back and do it again. So I'm going to back up a little bit here. Maybe I'll pick you up and bring you a little closer if that helps. And I can squat down. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pull the aeration device out. Probably making a lot of noise. Basically, it's just a tube. Okay? There's air holes in the bottom of it. I've got a weight, which is basically just a clay pot. That's all it is. The clay pot sits in the center and it holds it down. Okay? There's a tube. Drop that back in there. And then here's the pump. I'm going to leave links for all this stuff. Where can I? I'll have to leave direct links, or I'll tell you what they are. Either way, I got you covered. Truth and disclosure, folks. We don't want compost tea to be outside of its air for very long. I try to make my withdrawals from the air pot, from the compost tea pot, and use that compost tea either straight in a hospital situation to heal plants or diluted 3 or 4 parts water to 1 part compost tea concentrate. Okay? Does that make sense? So let me spell it out a little differently. 3 or 4 gallons of chlorine water, cicada flying in. 3 or 4 gallons of chlorine-free water with 1 gallon of concentrated compost tea. And then you've got a nice mix. You can put it on fresh chips. You can put it on old chips. You can put it on top of your compost pile to help your compost pile do better. We call that horizontal transfer. I'm going from over here to over there. I'm taking the living soil and all of its life, and I'm going to stick it in my compost tea, embellish it with some food, some protein, some carbohydrates, some chitin, some other things. And then we're going to make more of them. Then I'm going to stick it back in the compost to increase the efficiency of the compost. Does that make sense? So we're running kind of long. Basically, what I want to do is I'm going to show you how I pour all of this into my main compost tea batch, and then I'll bring the camera over and y'all can see it being aerated. So same thing. Basically, what I've done is done the same exact setup in my large compost tea batch as I did in the small one. So all I'm going to do is take the whole bit of it, just like this, and pour it in. If it was y'all, what you would be doing is you would be running the air hose through this lid. The lid's going to go on top of the compost tea pail. And then your air pump is going to sit higher than the liquid inside the pail. It can't sit lower because if the pump goes off, it'll backfeed into the pump and make the pump clog up. So the air pump sits higher than your tea. It's going to blow air down into there, into the air stone. If that's what you choose, you can use an air stone. They're fairly inexpensive, or you can go to the Tea Labs website and get one of their units. They work just fine. So that's really all there is to it. What I want you all to do is take a few minutes, watch this 20-minute video, and compile some questions to ask me, okay? And that way I can touch base with each of you as individuals. The last thing I want to say is that if you do happen to have chlorine water, this is humic acid, works similar to citric acid, and it's really, really dark because it's full of humates. We can actually use this liquid right here. We'll talk about it. I made videos on it before, but you can use this liquid to make your chlorine water safe to use for compost tea and safe to use for gardening. All right, so for the last 10 seconds, I'm going to go ahead and transfer the stuff into the mask builder. Just like so. Just drop that right in. Hook the little retaining clip onto the side, and you're good to go.